Hello, hello. Good evening. Good evening, hello. Welcome. Oh, welcome. Good evening. I am Jacob Brooks, the Exhibitions and Public Programming Officer here at the New York Studio School, and I'm honored to welcome you to our final Spring 2025 evening lecture. A reminder to those in person on 8th Street to please silence all cell phones during tonight's event. We reserve a time at the end for a Q&A with the audience. For those in the room, please raise your hand and we will bring a microphone to you so our online audience can hear your question. For our Zoom audience, you can submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. After the lecture, please join me and our guests downstairs in the Clay Room for some light refreshments and further conversation. The New York Studio School is grateful to the following funders for their support of the 2024-2025 Evening Lecture Series: the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, the Robert Lehman Foundation, the Samuel H. Kress Foundation, and many generous individual contributors. Now I'm delighted to introduce our speakers. Sam Levy is a painter based in Brooklyn, New York, working from direct perception. He has exhibited with the Painting Center in New York, John Davis Gallery in New York, the Bowery Gallery in New York, and Union Gallery at Wagner College in New York. In 2015, he participated in the Jentel Artist Residency in Wyoming. Levy is an instructor at the New York Studio School and adjunct faculty at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. Kaitlin McDonough is an artist based in Queens, New York. Her paintings have been exhibited extensively throughout Italy, in Venice, Rome, Vicenza, Bologna, Verona, and the US, Ireland, and Turkey. She has participated in residencies at the Vermont Studio Center, Göze, Büyükada, Turkey. Kaitlin received her BFA summa cum laude from Boston University and her MFA from Tyler School of Art at Temple University. She currently teaches here at the New York Studio School, where she has been a member of the faculty and staff since 2014 and was recently appointed our new dean. Clintel Steed holds a BFA in studio art from the Art Institute of Chicago and an MFA from Indiana University. He completed advanced studies at the New York Studio School, where he currently teaches. Briggs Whiteford is a lifetime career painter. Her art has been seen in galleries and museums all over the world. She was named Artist of the Year by the Huntsville Art Museum and has served on the board at the New York Studio School, where she has had deep affiliations for 2 decades. Whiteford has owned galleries in Malibu, California, Stonington, Connecticut, and she lives on Block Island, where she continues to paint the light and landscapes. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our guests.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's really an honor to be up here and to be with the three of you. It's really, this has been a long journey, and it's very exciting to be here tonight, to be closing the lecture series, to be a part of the New York Studio School lecture series. So we're gonna sort of go, we're gonna each tell our own journey of this trip. I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna give a little bit of general background information as well. And then I've sort of woven some drawings I did on site that tell my story with other images. So I'll give a little background and do I use this? Okay. So I just want to start with, this is Pompeii, one of our journeys in the city, looking back at Vesuvius. So this is what it looks like. Obviously there's clouds and whatever. The tree is important. But just to give a little bit of the history of Pompeii and what happened that day. And I want to also say that a lot of the information I have, like I've read and, but there's a lot of conflicting information as well. So, the date is August 24th, 79 CE, But even recently, that's been challenged where it might have happened in the fall. A lot of experts think it might have happened in the fall based on things they've found. But so everything I say with this, I think there's a little bit of a, it may or may not be true. This is a painting in Pompeii, one of the houses. So if you notice, the mountain has a nice peak. Vesuvius has a nice peak. The citizens of Pompeii did not know that this was a catastrophic volcano, okay? There's some evidence that there's volcanic rock, but you see an image that's very beautiful. The figure on the left is Dionysus. There's a panther. There's a lot of, it's abundant. It's an abundant green, full of life place, the bird, everything. This is Turner's, a painting done by Turner of Vesuvius. Vesuvius erupted in 79. It continued erupting for up until the last eruption was 1944, believe it or not. During World War II, Allied forces actually thought that it was, I don't know, they thought that it was maybe something the Germans and the Italians were using as a ruse or something. But, it's interesting, it was erupting all through time, and when Turner went to visit, I think he was hoping he would see one. I'm sure he was, but he didn't. So this is from imagination, but he did go. And this is a big part of my talk, my section. I think all of us are going to talk about it. But a big part of this trip is sort of walking in the footsteps of other artists, which is a big reason of going to see things in person. And I don't think we talk about this enough, but when you're standing in front of a painting, you're not just standing in front of an object, but you're actually standing where the artist stood. And when you're in Pompeii, that's multiplied by a cajillion, because the whole place is covered in paintings, and sculptures have been removed, lots of things have been removed, but you're in the place where these people lived, and it's really an experience like no other. So the eruption happened. Just to go back, the peak of the mountain they think was something like over 6,000 feet, and now it's somewhere like 4,000 feet. So all of that mass, you could imagine over time, but specifically in 79, raining down on the people of Pompeii, it must have been terrifying. And it kind of hit home recently in a different way when I saw the disasters in LA, the fires, those images, I just looked at it and I was like, wow, that's Pompeii. So there's a Roman historian named Pliny the Elder, I think I'm saying that right, who actually, he's a famous naturalist historian. He dies in the eruption. He leaves his island home and he goes and he's going to help some friends, and he ends up, they don't really know how he died, but he may have had a heart attack or he suffocated. And his nephew, Pliny the Younger, wrote an account of the eruption many years later. So that's also the first documented eruption, story of an eruption that we have. But it sounds hellish, and you can read about it. There's a lot written about it. But people in Pompeii were either, a lot of them died either by suffocating from gas, from the ash that was falling, or gases that were being released in the air. It just poisoned them. So a lot of people, and you probably know some of the images of the bodies. You can see a couple here. These are molds of cavities left from the bodies over time. So one of the excavators in the 19th century, I think, an Italian, he figured out that you could pour plaster into the empty cavity of where the body was, and then they could preserve the cast that way. So when you see, maybe you've seen these images before. There's some that are really like, there's a lot of these, and it's pretty unique in our human history to have these. They think about 1,500 people died in Pompeii. They don't really know. They think the city may have been anywhere from like 6 to 30,000 people. They don't really know. It was a major city center. The forum was made to hold quite a lot of people, so people were coming from around to go to be there. Just to circle back to this, like the World War II thing. So it's erupted a bunch of times. The last time was in 1944, and it's just kind of interesting that when they excavate now, because there's ongoing excavations, you read about these things all the time. They find shrapnel and like things like that from World War II, alongside like ancient metals and things like that. So there they are, like pottery. So our modern era woven into the time in a kind of a dark way. And I show this photo, like Pompeii is a beautiful place, but it has this identity that's both. It's both beauty and terror sort of woven in. And I have to admit that when we were there, it was more beauty than the terrifying. You're aware of it, but it was just, we saw the most amazing things, so it was just so exciting to be there. But it's unique in its destruction. And it's also unique to me because the artwork of Pompeii somehow reflects this idea, beauty and like an awareness of death that's very present. This is a mosaic in Naples, in the Naples Museum that we saw. This is my photo. I've been looking at this image for a long time. And just to go into it a little bit, you look at it, it's a skull. It's clearly, something perhaps like sees the day kind of image. But what else is going on? Because it's more interesting than that. There's a wheel which talks to the cycles of life, I think. Above the wheel and below the skull is a butterfly. So you can read that image in different ways, but I'll just say, as like the life itself, like the short span of a butterfly. I think it has a lot of symbolic meanings as well. On either side of the skull, on the left side is like a shepherd's crook, or perhaps like a wanderer's kind of staff, and there's like a rucksack, and so the person that leads a life with, not many things, person that is maybe a philosopher, and on the right side is it's actually like a scepter and a royal cloak. So you have the king, say, and like the pauper on the other side. So what is happening at the top is a construction level. So it's balanced by these two personalities on either side of the spectrum. Balanced by the skull on the butterfly on the wheel. And that's a plumb bob for any drawing people out here, that's resting on the top of the skull's head. So there's a lot of symbolism in this image. I just found out recently that this was a tabletop in a garden. So that also speaks to what I said before. Like, it's just like this artwork is everywhere, and just thinking of it being sort of on the table where we're having wine and enjoying the day. So this messaging is it's very present, and that's interesting. So this is mosaic. I think there's another name for it, but it's teeny tiny gems. It's a beautiful thing. Clearly, like somebody very skilled made this. But again, to the opposites thing of Pompeii, this is something we saw very serendipitously, or Kaitlin and I were kind of wandering around the city, and a guard Caitlin's fluent in Italian, so she was able to communicate with him. And it's very low on the wall, and he was saying it's a children's drawing carved into the wall. So like these kinds of echoes, not only just the beautiful artwork that we'll see some of, that we know of, but also there's this kind of memory in the place as well, I think is very, is important. This trip was kind of a moonshot, meaning like, we've been working on this for years. It got delayed because of COVID, but even before then, I remember Clintel, you and I, and Jonathan Harcum, who I also want to mention because he was part of the conversation. We were drawing the frescoes at the Met one day, and that led Jonathan to go to Pompeii. If you don't know, he's taught here. He's a great painter who lives in LA. And so that conversation was just sort of like a seed, and this tonight is actually kind of a branch out of many seeds, but that's one through line. And so for me, I really think of this as a moonshot because we did, even when we were on the trip, we didn't really know where we would land in a way. Like we had the goal of being in Pompeii in the Villa of Mysteries, but it was, I don't want to go into it, but it was just kind of like, I hope we get there, and I hope and it also was reinforced by being driven around in a Fiat. Our guide, who was amazing, Anna Ferrantino, she had us in a Fiat, so it was like being in what David Bowie says, a tin can. So driving around Italy. So we landed, this is Rome, and I just show this is Livia's garden, and again, like the tree image, this is, she was an empress. This was a sealed room, but it's a 4-walled garden. And there we are drawing it, looking at it, making our observations. And here there were many trees and birds, but again, the lushness, it's the tree of life in the garden against like more wild garden, very beautiful. This is in Rome. And then for me, we had the opportunity to see an exhibition called The Instant and Eternity. And it's an amazing exhibition that brought together a lot of artworks from distant times and places. So like this is a Mycenaean, you know what I'm saying, tomb in the show, and these are 4 women. I think they're dancing. They have their arms up like this, from let's just say like thousands of years ago. Right alongside, you can see the tomb in one of these, these other images, an Egyptian sculpture, an Apollo from, southern Greek islands, another Apollo figure. And this one on the right is important, but Cycladic figure, that's, there's a great grouping of these at the Met right now, but this right next to the Kore figure, which was really exciting for me to see in person. It was this beautiful object, and I think it may have been from Athens, from the Acropolis. So like all these things just happened to be in Rome that we were seeing, and also telling this long story of time, and gods, really, I mean, of different cultures. This is all in this show, so, and there's many objects that I want to show, but on the left is a Fayum portrait, so a very like particular representation of somebody, and then on the right is it sort of has a question mark, but a very particular representation of another person sculpted, 2 beautiful objects without much information about them. And we also saw these, this was kind of, we were in Rome, and it was kind of like a precursor, or like a I'm not sure what to say, but just like, oh, I'm trying to get there, like I'm trying to get the ship to land there. But these are so the 4 women on the sarcophagus from the Greek culture, from a distant land. These are 2 of 4 figures that were actually found in Pompeii. And these have been separated, but I think these were from Naples, and they had them in Rome. But and that's, just mention really quick, that's also part of this story, is that excavations for Pompeii have been happening since it was buried and it was safe enough to do it. People knew that there were treasures down there. So like in some form or in some way, people have been digging to find these treasures, and you'll see like things end up in Berlin, or a king gave something to another king and it's from Pompeii. So these are in Naples. I think the other 2 might be somewhere else. But I also want to just point out this like stillness in the figures, and there's also sort of like strange, there's a strange life to them, but they also seem like separated from life in a way to me. They're so frozen, but they're dancing. So they're the opposites, again, like happening within these figures. And there's a rhythm to them, and you see the 4 together in a book, you can see it. It's, and these are from a villa in Pompeii. So, okay. So just to, I'm trying, we went to Paestum. And this is one of my drawings from there. It's just like a really great moment for me to like be calm and like actually like sit and observe the temple, the Greek temple in Italy that has a lot of significance. We were staying in the mountains nearby, which I felt was important. This was a fast drawing, but I just like was able to take a break. And it was preparing for this lecture, I saw a connection between this drawing of the mountain and this core I did that I showed earlier, so that I felt like the Greeks, like there was something about that place in Paestum that they must have chosen it for a reason, and it talks in their work. So I'm gonna just try and speed up a little bit, but again, like this is a tomb in Paestum, the Tree of Life, another tomb with the 2 women and weaving, which is important, the thread. And we come to Pompeii, and I'm going to come back to this in a second, but this is Briggs drawing in Pompeii. The Villa of Mysteries in Pompeii, I'll come back to that in a second. But this also was a big thing for me, where it was like the fresco is an illusion of space, where you're seeing into a multi-layered place, but you're also denied access to it. And then just another representation of like the beauty of Pompeii. This is Ariadne and Theseus, or Dionysus. So I'll just go through my process in the Villa Mysteries, and that'll sort of be it. But there's Kaitlin drawing. So I came into the room, and I was like, I'm going to focus on this one like beautiful fresco, and I did this is kind of a larger drawing. And we went to the Naples Museum, and I did this drawing of Apollo, which was very like a difficult like drawing for me, but it's that stillness was really present. And I came back, and Clintel had been working on this drawing the day before, and I was like, I need to do that. Like I need to take on more of the wall. So that was my project, and I basically, like, from left to right, tried to draw every figure in the villa for the 3 days we had at that time there. So there's a lot of different readings of this. I'm not going to really go into it in my section. We might talk about it later, but there are the 2 pieces together. The back wall. This actually, I didn't think it would be so important for me, but it was. This one in the next image, and I think it's the most important part of the fresco. And this is the one thing I'll say about it. I'll show the next one, and then so you have, this is to the right of the last one, and you have the woman cowering on the lap of the other figure, and then you have this sort of dancing figure stretched out, and she's the only fully nude figure in the fresco, but her back faces us, so we don't see her face. And I kind of feel like a lot of people read this as this standing figure with the wings is whipping the figure who's kneeling in the other lap. But I actually see her as sort of protecting, both threatening and protecting this grouping of figures. And on the left, you have the woman in fear, in pain, perhaps. And then on the right, you have the woman that's sort of in ecstasy and maybe showing something, a desire. So there's a choice that you have when you're confronted with something. And then the next part of this cycle is this woman who's self-contained, and this Cupid on the left is holding her image. Do you want to skip ahead? No? Okay. So I'm just trying to breeze through some of this stuff. So we're, just a kind of conclusion, this is a drawing I did at the very end. Again, that's a tree on the right against the mountain, the Vesuvius. And I just like taking this away from Pompeii in a nutshell. The tree is really important for me. And this is an image I did, drawing I did of an image in Pompeii of a snake climbing a tree and eating the fruit in the tree, which, the snake is a very important life-giving symbol. It moves between worlds. It goes under the ground, but it can climb into the tree. And so for me, when I came back from Pompeii, it was kind of interesting because I was teaching a marathon in Westbury Gardens with Graham Nixon. And I didn't have time to process this, but I could still find the tree. And this is, I call this Lenore's tree because one of our students, Lenore Wolf, was painting a huge painting of this tree. So I did a drawing for her. And then even to the present, this was on Sunday, I was drawing the large elm tree in Washington Square Park with a program called Tree Wonder and some friends. But also that image of the woman in the villa, is something I bring back to my studio working with my friend who's a kind of priestess herself in the studio. And this is my last two slides. This was a drawing I did in Naples, and I have a 4-year-old son who was he was 2 at the time, and I was missing him. And this is Bacchus and Dionysus, I think, or it's Bacchus in celebration. It's in Naples. We went to Westbury, and I was kind of bummed I couldn't just go to my studio and paint all of this stuff. So I found the tree, but I also, in Westbury Gardens, there's a sculpture of this, which would have been made in the early 20th century. And I'd never seen it before, but it's at the bottom of the house. He's not holding the symbols. He's just got his hands out. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so I did a drawing of that. And then Clintel was like, I told Clintel, and he was like, oh, you got to paint that. So I was like, okay. And that continued. This was the painting that sort of happened after that. I finished last year. That's it.
Thank you. So, weaving. There is a weaving that takes place, inner and outer, self and world, internal, external, spirit becoming matter and transmitting spirit back out. There's a weaving through our eyes. They go out, look, receive, return, hold, interpret, pause, act, react. The words I'll share tonight will be a weaving, a return, and a future seed. Graham had appointed myself, Sam, Clintel, and Briggs as artist ambassadors to draw, to be transformed by, and to teach from some of the most special paintings known to humanity. Embedded in the focus of our journey were the very keys for its unlocking, recognizing that a painting only exists where it is. Its scale, color, symbols, geometry, and forms exist visually and physically, in direct relationship with our own physical form, rhythm, alignment. This is true for all material works of art, and it is especially emphasized when a work remains in the location for which it was created, as many of these paintings do. Process. I sewed books and a holster for many, many pencils. You can see it at the bottom of this picture. 11 books with grounds of various color. Color being primary, I wanted to position myself as well as possible to relate to it, to receive from it, directly or analogously. There are 127 drawings in my Pompeii books. Our listening eyes went to Paestum, home to the tomb of the diver, pure poetry in painted form from 300 to 400 BC. The symbolic is not information. It is initiation into experience, which foregrounds perceptual modes of knowing. Spirit seeks form, and forms emit spirit. Rhythms build. Geometry radiates sound. One vibration creates many vibrations. A shell, a dish, a receiver, a transmitter. Winding and nesting. This particular book holds the entire room's rhythm. Painted cycle. Read chronologically, it may be interpreted as the initiation of a young girl into a Dionysian cult, or the depiction of elite preparations for marriage. The narrative is only one layer of many possible readings. There are also the embedded forms which impact us at subtle and bodily levels. The harmonics of how we move, internally and externally, seasonally and cyclically, accumulating and inflicting, receiving and transmitting. Angles which open and close, curves which triangulate around the room. Olive branches, gold bands, forms of touch. Repeat. The symbolic method is to put ourselves into the state of the symbol object, to become heavy with the quality of weight, to become red with the quality of redness, to burn with the quality of fire. That's Robert Lawler. Spirals and pockets, a turning inward, an expansion outward. Truth has a sound. A youth reads from an open scroll, symbols bridging esoteric and exoteric. Master Eckhart tells us when the soul wants to experience something, She throws out an image in front of her and then steps into it. Interlocked serving, rhythms, angles, intervals, concatenation of touch, gaze. Red space holding form, this is the only figure who looks directly to us. Mismatched mirror, limit and door, web of gaze, self-seeing self, self-to-maker, serpent, halo, hair, antenna, initiate assumes the spaceship throne. Queen Mother, singular, the start, the finish, watching, overseeing, alone, and pervasive. When we returned to New York, we met the group of artists from around the world who had signed up to experience a marathon at the school based on these works and everything that we could try to deliver through our direct experiences of them. We structured the immersive 2 weeks to mirror our travels, asking each artist to engage with imagery from the Paestum tombs through to the Villa of the Mysteries. We created a collaborative room-size painting to experience what it is like to try to paint the dewy air of a garden and the geometries encoded within it. We asked them to engage directly with fields of color, creating space for hues to hold meaning and vibrate that meaning. The students made 7-foot oil paintings from sections of the Villa of the Mysteries, which led to giant triptychs that would incorporate their personal mythologies. Receivers able to transmit. We are members of a living lineage, transcending and bridging space, one-to-one auric transmissions, co-creating these mysteries and fostering the firsthand engagement which keeps them alive. Pass it to Briggs now.
What button do I push? That one, right there? Yeah, okay. Hi. So Graham approached me in 2018, knowing my passion for travel and ancient art, and he said, I have a vision. I would like to take students and faculty to sites around the world where they can experience the art and then bring it back to the school, and we can create marathons and lectures around those sites. Well, this trip was the prototype for that vision that Graham had, and my hope is there will be many more like this. So I arrive in Rome, and I go to the Herculaneum. Is that how you pronounce it, Sam? Okay. I'm very jet-lagged. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, and I see all these beautiful gardens, frescoes. First of all, my first encounter with first-century frescoes, and they're so lovely, and they're so lush, and they're birds and trees and nymphs, and so I loved this first couple of days looking at, that's Persephone. And then we go to Pompeii, and I am astonished and bewildered at what I'm looking at. The magnificent, life-sized figures and illusionistic depth of these drawings took my breath away. But even more so was the red curtains, like a theatrical curtain around this drama that I was looking at. So the first image that was so compelling, and I think Sam also, or was it, yeah, Sam mentioned this one, was so mysterious and enigmatic that I was just drawn to it because of the intensity. And this is what do I see here? What am I looking at? What the hell is this happening here? And it looked like this fury, this spirit of fury and punishment, and this winged, androgynous creature with a whip, and presenting a veiled phallus. So, this punishment and this sexuality, and I imagine that this potent red plays a crucial symbolic energy, and because for me it evoked strong emotion of desire and fear and ecstasy and pain, blood rites, transformational states. What am I looking at? So the next day, we go back, and I decided I am going to have to take this very slowly and just draw what I see. So I go to the first, and I'm going to take you on my very intimate and personal experience with these images. So here we have, looks like, pretty calm. There's women that are dressed, and there's a young boy who isn't, but he seems to be reading something. And I'm assuming that figure on the right is, let's call her an initiate. I didn't read anything about this because I didn't want to let other things influence me. I wanted to have my own, I wanted it to reveal itself. I wanted it to take me where it wanted to take me, these ancient images. So everything seems pretty calm here. And then the next panel of the cycle, everyone's still dressed, and they seem to be doing domestic things, perhaps ritual kinds of preparations. And then I look all the way to, if you look all the way to the left of this panel, there is a silin. Now this is am I saying that right, silin? No, that's not the Seder. The Seder's later. No, it's a silin. Okay. Anyway, it's...
They can do the research.
You can do the research. But it's this, it's half animal and half human. And it's playing, this musical instrument. So, okay, things are getting interesting here. This is definitely moving now into ritual space. Now, this next drawing, I stood in front of this drawing for the whole day. And I drew it many, many times because I couldn't figure out, it was like a puzzle. What's happening here? Well, I could tell it was Pan and Panessa, the deity of the shepherd and the shepherdess. But I had to draw it many times to see that Panessa is actually nursing a goat, if you see that. And there are other goats crawling up around her. And these... So this, I imagine that this is part of this initiation to integrate the animal nature and the sort of wild, whoops, oh, okay, I did something wrong. How do I go back? Okay. And now the next one. All right, we'll go here. Okay, so there's now this this sense that the animal nature has to be integrated as the initiate is moving towards something, let's just call it enlightenment of some sort. And then the next image is this woman she's in this horror. She's horrified, and my guess is, can we go back to Dionysus? Since what she's looking on is this scene, which is, now those are the satyrs there, and there's the silin right there, and they're having some kind of drunken ritual, and Dionysus is over here drunk in the arms of his consort. So the figure in that one, this one, can we go back? Is looking onto this scene, and you know, Dionysus is all about revelry and passion, and she's, I think she's more than fearful. I think she's in awe. I think this is my sense, is that she is very, very in ecstasy over what she's seeing, and frightened at the same time, all of these emotions. Okay, now we go back. Now we go to this most intense image. Now I'm ready to take it on. And in the context of what I've seen before, to begin to understand it a little. And I see a woman kneeling. I see this winged creature, and with the whip and the phallus. But in this symbolic, I imagine it's a symbolic act of flagellation. I imagine that the phallus in this context is not sexual, but tied to the ancient ideas, Roman ideas of fertility, of power, of transformation, of the divine. And that this is a ritual ordeal that she must go through in order to, it's of pain, yes, there is pain, but there's also a purification ritual happening, in my sense. And then the next scene, okay, thanks. Now she's being cradled by an older woman, perhaps a nursemaid, but she's being cradled and she's very vulnerable. And so I imagine that vulnerability is a return to innocence and before being spiritually reborn. I have steeled myself now for revelation. There's something here that wants to reveal itself to me in this time, in this place. And I have gone back to the deep past in order to have this revelation in my own personal life with these images. And it's very interesting because we're all doing our own work over here, right? And as you can see, we're all seeing things and relating in our own way, but we're all in this, well, it's like a mystery room, but we're together, but we're having our own experience. And so it's very fascinating to hear. This is actually the first time I've heard everybody's full-on experience because we were so engrossed in our own work. Okay, so now we have, for me, the final image, which is, or in my drawing, is a woman who is in ecstatic dance. And she is nude, and the nudity is, I imagine, a symbol of her freedom and of her rebirth. And the freedom and the divine connection that she has experienced. She's playing tambourines, there's movement. So these paintings for me, I think, is that my last one? Yes, are a magnificent metaphor for all revelation of all kinds that include a mix of pain and pleasure, physical, as well as it blends the pain, the pleasure, the agony, the ecstasy with mystical awakening of some sort. And art is a funnel. It just helped me to really see that art is a funnel for the sacred to be poured into life, and that the artist has the power to offer a direct experience, like I had with these paintings, of this timeless, transcendent wisdom. And my work as an artist is to make significant forms that stir the psyche, like these did for me, and to into a deeper potential for revelation. Thank you.
All right, so so much has been said already. So I'll just say this: this whole thing, I guess, is about a transformation, and I guess this villa, from what I was listening to, I heard a podcast. I was a bit like Briggs. I just wanted to go there and experience it visually. I think that's very important for me, and I'll say that why right now. When I was a child, one of my first things I remember, and I guess this is a child, they're saying maybe this is Dionysius as a child reading his rites, and there's stages that go on in this painting and the way that it's read. But it's like being, this cult is like being induced to see into another world. So some people go to it, some people don't go all the way into it. Whatever might be revealed to them might scare them. But this child, they say, at this time might, at the age of 4, begin to read. But for me, I remember my mom as a child crying for the first time. The reason why, by our church, a child had died in the river. And that river was very angry, almost like Mountain Vesuvius. So whatever. So I'm always since that I've been very, I guess, susceptible to nature, to grief, to turmoil. So when you take me to a place like this, and I guess that's what Graham as a person, to choose us for, and us being so different, but us also having something so profound to bring home, and also to learn from is a gift, and a gift to him as a person, to me, because I feel like I've always known something that is ugly, and it's been a testament for me to have these moments, to be able to go to Pompeii, and to be able to draw this from life. So when I got there, I knew that I wanted to work in color. I worked in the corner. I usually get very dirty. So, and I also knew when I got back here, I wanted to continue that work. And that's something I like that philosophy. What I begin is just the beginning. It turns into something. And that's what I loved about this school. What a gift it is to come here this evening and be able to have this conversation about what it means to create. So this image for me, I guess everybody was compelled by certain things, which you've heard. I think I've always been compelled by this sense of love. And so this moment for me, though, anytime you give me an opportunity to talk about different dimensions, about mushrooms, about transformation, my mind goes on fire. Because I am like a daydreamer. Like I said, I feel like I've tasted the pain of life a lot. Never had this moment. So this moment where they're holding it, I guess, is first when Dionysius goes and looks in the river and he gets killed. So there's always a resurrection happening. And his wife, Ariadne, is like, she's the one that helps him, right? She's the one that helps through the maze. And the maze is a very beautiful metaphor because the maze is always like us moving through life. But where we begin, we always end up. And that's a very beautiful thing. And so there's so many metaphors. And that's the other thing I love about Graham, I miss about him, is that hunger. The hunger to talk about metaphors. I mean, I feel like sometimes when we use language, it's almost like so limited. So that's why when this moment, so they don't know why this moment crumbled. You know, the piece was found, 2,000 years later? It was covered in ash. They don't even know how it didn't all the way melt. It sort of stayed intact, and then people did stupid things as we do, like covered it in wax. We saw it in its most purest state, I think, actually, when it been worked on with lasers and such things. So we saw it as actually maybe as it was in its day. The red actually was the most expensive at its time. It was so expensive it was taxed. So that red was very important. But the piece that was missing was a moment for me to enter into that moment of the portal, I should say. So I was able to talk about, there's some more images. The other thing I want to say about this, when I saw some of these things, and I'll get to this, was coming back, was it made me look at nature around me in a different way. And I always talk about this with my students, you know, that we go through life at a very fast pace. So when I came back, you know, and I see like the bird with the little red thing in his mouth, it makes me feel more alive. And there's the reason why. This is another piece from that moment. This is another piece I did, and I'm going to talk about some of these pieces. As Sam showed so many pieces, some of the places we went. So this was a place, I think, in Rome, and this is like I started mixing and matching things. Like I might see a sculpture because I knew when I came back it was going to become something else. Here's another piece of that. These are kind of mixed and matched, whatever. You guys see how many times, and the most thing about this to me is Sam brought it up, is the idea of the pilgrimage. We don't talk about making pilgrimages anymore. It is so important as a painter to go to the source, go look at a painting in the flesh, draw from it, learn from it. To me, this is a tradition, and I love that. This is me making things up now when I got back, like I said. This is a piece of the missing thing. So I was imagining my imagination, if that piece had not falling apart, what would happen in that scene. So it was a moment for me to imagine whatever I wanted. And that's just a moment for me to talk about beauty. So I think this moment of whatever, Dionysius, I don't think he was drunk here. There's a few Dionysiuses, right? There's like a good guy and a bad guy. There's one that gets drunk all the time, and there's another guy that's kind of like really cool, kind of like does other stuff. And so, but for me, I always want to be in the dimension of thinking about good things, I guess. This is why I was going back to the bird. I did do a couple of these paintings when I got back of the garden. So I literally did take this stuff serious. And these paintings and this whole moment will impact me for the rest of my life, because that's what things are supposed to do to me. It was not just a trip. I believe in being a pilgrim, and a pilgrim takes trips, but he learns and he gains on his trips, right? This is that other piece I was talking about, another one. And that's just like a beast of burden. I think I always come back to this. I don't know if you guys ever seen this movie, Mission. I feel like you always got to confess about things. So the guy's climbing up in the mountains, and he's got all the rocks on his back, and he's climbing up, and I always remember that image, and that image always reminds me of this, right? Pulling things, pulling your reality, pulling hardship, dealing with things. That's why I did this image too. And that's a piece of that. That's when I got back. I'm telling you, when I got back, I just expanded. So here it is again. I'm almost done here. Just gonna go through these now. I think this is actually on site. This is another one of those pieces. And this was like, I was talking to one of the students about, I had a football coach. I've had a few great people I feel like that have always been able to deal with me. Some people ignore me. Some people write me off. Some people tell me I'm too much. Graham sent me here. I had another coach that would slap me on the helmet. Steed, then I score a touchdown. So I think in that reality of people who can calm me down, I think for them and for Graham and like my coach, I want to do something from the moment. So I always want to make something great. And this was like that final piece. And there were pieces to this, but all those pieces to me were leading up to this. Here's another one of the garden that I did when I got back. There's probably a piece of the bird there somewhere. And it's a moment for me just to speak about beautiful things, like I said, coming from that moment and re-observing my own nature. Here it goes back. This piece, actually, I wanted to do this because this ended up in the corner here. Sometimes I get in trouble for working like this. It's not, I used to have friends in Bushwick. They say, oh, who cares about how archival? Let the guys deal with that, So I get the gluing and I get the stapling. But anyway, so I love to collage things. And my students know this. I talk about this all the time. So anyway, this piece, I wanted to show this because when we were there, we had a conversation what it might have been like to be there at night with the fire. And I love fire. I love working outside when I can. I love being next to a fire. And I love painting outside. And, one night I was just chilling, and that was in the fire. So it was like a moment, for me coming back and thinking about what they might have felt, I think that's it. Thank you, guys.
you've heard how varied all of our experiences were. Briggs said it well. We were in the same room, but clearly on shared and different journeys. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything else, or if maybe we should just open it up if there are questions.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, okay.
Questions?
Yeah, maybe we'll have a discussion out of that.
When you were sitting on the floor of the in the Villa of the Mysteries, were there any restrictions on materials you could use?
Yes, I'll speak to that because these are ancient frescoes, so they wouldn't let us use anything wet. There could be no water at all.
Just like museums.
Yes, and we were so lucky because they let us go inside very close to the paintings, but they were very careful, and everyone else was, just on the outside of the villa looking in, and we were able to get really close. And I think if there were more than 4 of us, we wouldn't have been able to go in. But they were, we had to be escorted in, we had to be escorted out.
We were very lucky, though, I must say. It's like a red carpet moment to me, I felt like, because, they could almost touch the frescoes. I stayed off to the side. They gave me, like, a blanket or whatever, and then I just stayed there. But it was still, like, magical just to be on the floor, like, just in the space. It felt very electric, like, every day. So
Yeah, it's true. We had their names up at the start, but Anna Ferrantino and Stefania Terracino really helped they made it possible for us to be in the room. And you can typically only view the room from a window on the outside, which means that some of the drawings that we were able to show you tonight and the photographs, you actually can't see them. It would be as if we had a window here and you wouldn't be able to see parts of the room. So it was incredible to be able to see the angles and the interconnections. It's not just the isolated groupings, but actually what's directly opposite or diagonally across, and the visual connections and symbolic connections moving in many different directions.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to sit on the floor in the villa. It was a moment. I mean, it was really out of nowhere that we had that kind of access, and we were just drawing. It was very intense, like 5 hours that we would have, and it was just like going to work. You sort of like pack your lunchbox, so to speak, and like show up and like get to work and like then go have lunch. But yeah, and just to speak to that, like, I mean, we really could like talk more about like the meaning of the mysteries of the villa, and of course, just to say it wasn't, who knows what it was called or whatever, but like the connection, those 2 walls with the woman dancing and the woman who's sitting, her hair's being held, and there's like a Cupid-like figure like holding her image, like people passing by couldn't see those images. So you're really missing like the thing of the picture, and those connections too. Like, are the figures talking to other figures across the way? That kind of thought that's happening.
I think also, I don't know if we point, but I think the paintings are like 2,000 years ahead of their time. Because they're like, nobody paints like that again for like another 2,000 years. And that's also the mystery of it. Like, it was so advanced. Like, they were so advanced. Like, that's, like, and the guy who looked at the furniture, who I listened to, he didn't see any furniture like that made anywhere in Greece or anywhere. So there's all these hidden things. Like, and when the girl's looking in the mirror, and the one that you love, I guess she's no longer looking at herself, right? You stop looking at yourself and you start looking internally. So I think there's a lot about it, like through the pain and stuff, but a lot of internal seeing through this space, if that makes sense.
Sure does.
Here's a quick question from Zoom. How did you all choose the materials you brought with you to capture the images you were seeing, and why?
I can start. So I really feel that the trip absolutely began in New York when I started sewing the books and painting the paper to make the books. And that was very intentional, knowing that I wouldn't be able to bring paint, wanting to have paint, and trying to come up with a solution to do that. So, thinking about those grounds, not just in a direct, I know I'm going to see a lot of yellow ochre or a certain kind of red, but actually thinking about analogous color and complementary color, and almost entering the headspace of going there before going there, and then bringing as many colored pencils and pencils as possible.
I like pregame. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like, you go places and then you're like, no, this is what the backpack can handle. This is the tools I can take with me. This is what I can carry. This is the weight, and this is the paper. So, and I think when you get there, that's the thing I think is important. Like, for us, it's like being, what does it mean to be an artist? What does it mean to work on site? What does it mean to go places and to work? What does it mean to be involved, really working wherever you are? So I think, being prepared is a part of what we do, level up.
I just wanted really good paper, a really good notebook, and really good pencils, and that's all I brought. I mean, I borrowed a few, I think, from Clintel, but really, the simpler the better, because I knew these images were going to be so powerful.
Yeah, the same. I mean, I was stocking up on like different papers and like tearing them in different sizes and like had all these options when I knew, because when you get in front of something like this, or you just, if the paper's too thick or too thin, like, I brought watercolors to do, and I didn't really get a chance like to work out in the landscape like I was imagining, but I kept to the pencil because of the simplicity of it, and I paint a lot from my drawings. So having color in the drawings, like I want to get the color to come out of the pencil, if that makes sense. So when I'm away from that thing, I'm looking at the drawing sort of as color and not as like all three of you all had like tons of color, and I was like, whoa. But yeah, I just kept it simple.
Thank you. First of all, as someone who's like had to crane my neck from the railing, I just want to take a moment to express my jealousy. But I also am curious. The experience was awesome to hear about, but I'm curious about the experience when you came back. When you mentioned the marathon a little bit, I'm curious, in that room, bringing these ideas back here, and you're continuing to do it, are there certain teaching narratives that keep springing up from this experience? Are there ideas you keep coming back to with students, and are there ideas that keep coming back in your own studio? And can you put language to what those ideas might be and define them in any way?
It's a great question. It's a big one. I feel like, we've led two-week marathons. Sam is going to lead one this summer, if anyone's interested. And so it's almost a 2-week response that isn't even complete there. But one of the things that I'll share is this notion of symbolic thought that I touched upon tonight. This notion that, unlike verbal language where an apple is an apple, when we see a symbol of an apple, it opens up in many directions, however many associations it can hold, whatever the form, the color, the scale, the size evokes. So a huge gift for me from these trips that we've woven into the teachings is this notion of symbol and metaphor, and what that can mean, not just looking at art, and interpreting things that have happened, but how each person can bring that into their own work. Then, of course, there's the geometry and the color, and we mentioned Livia's garden, and really trying to get into that through, of course, the visual, but also a kind of full sensory experience. And then the thing that we've all touched upon, just the importance of what it means to make something, thinking about it with regards to a certain space. One of the things that we're all grappling with as artists right now is how much we encounter art that's homeless and on a phone and completely divorced from a real space. So that's a question that we all have to work through. I think we have a couple of these were paintings that I made right after coming back. So just to give you a sense of what happened to me in the studio after returning that summer. You can probably see some connections, but I know for me, and I imagine for all of us, it's something that continues to unfold in my own work. And that's the beauty of a trip like this and the way that we're thinking about time traveling as artists here, because it's not limited. Tonight is someone calls it another branch in this tree. We're gonna keep weaving. A bunch of us spoke about that. It collapses time so that it can expand back outward.
I think it's just tradition too. Like, I don't know. Like, I think for me, it just helps me believe in myself. I think about Göze when you ask that question, because he went there with his daughter. So his daughter wrote about it. And then I guess those black paintings that he made with the cigarettes or whatever, they're influenced by that. So, everybody will, I think we all have to make that's like, I guess the gift of the school is giving us legs to believe in ourselves. Like, it's faith. Like Mercedes believed in what she did. Graham believed in what he did. We have to believe in what we do. And hopefully in these rooms, in these hallways, we can discover better ways about coming to that, and have conversations, so hopefully you'll make the pilgrimage that you need to make, but I think for a lifetime, right, that's what I think it should. I don't know. I think this trip will sit with me for the rest of my life. I don't know how these guys feel. I'm pretty much sure, they feel the same. So I don't think, that's what I'm saying. I think as painters, it's not entertainment. It's not just a trip. It's not just a transcription. It's more of my heartbeat. We're actually like, all kind of dying here together if you think about it. It's kind of true. You get older every minute, right? You don't grow younger. Like, the seasons, they come, they go. So you either live in your moment or...
Well, I want to say, like, it's true. It's true.
There are those spaceship thrones, though. I feel like they had some technology that we didn't have.
Well,
That
I
might be
mean,
true, too.
Clintel, you said earlier, like, it's not about going on a trip and sightseeing. Like, it's not that at all. I mean, it's like, and that's what I mean by moonshot. Like, I take it that seriously. Like, I'm an astronaut, and I don't know if I'm coming back. Like, I think I'll come back. But, like, I'm deadly serious about this. And it's also not just about making transcriptions of things there. It's, you don't have... Like I sort of said before, like, you're standing in front of this thing where the person who made it also, like, their brush left and that was it, and they saw it. And I think it carries a certain weight of reality that drawing, at least for me, like, allows me to actually see. It's not, I can see the image in a book, but I don't know. It was able to, like, uncover layers of depth in the painting. The only thing I can think of is sort of like a aesthetic arrest kind of thing, like and that's what I believe in, working from life, and I could see it in the paintings. Like, the space is much more complex than it appears, like in the villa. the structuring of all the things, the impact of the color. But it really feels, for me, a lot of times, like it is a reality unto itself. That's more real than like the computer and all the craziness that we deal with in our realities all the time. And then when you go out into nature, like you draw a tree or draw a person, like that, there's a different kind of reality that like appears or like is created between that relationship. And it's the same thing. So like I feel as a teacher, I'm always stressing like, look harder, basically. But I think there's something really incredibly rewarding in that, which was a part of my education and opened my eyes, as if I'd never used them before in a way, or revealed something that I couldn't put my finger on in a way. And so, like as a teacher, I mean, it's definitely staying with me for the rest of my life. Like I don't think I'll ever leave that room. So that's what I feel like, whether it's drawing the tree or drawing anything, you're painting, you have to believe in that sort of bubble that's created between you and that thing.
And the idea of revelation, it doesn't happen easily. This wasn't a walk in the park for us. We worked really hard. It was really hot, and there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot of suffering that we had to do to get there, and we had to sacrifice a lot to be there. But that's the only way that real art, or the kind of art that I want to make, that is a significant form that carries the timeless, the wisdom, the timeless beauty, so that it reverberates through powerful images, and that will carry that power through time.
Speaking of time, we're over, so I think we'll end it there. Thank you, guys.